So, yesterday we have discussed about institution, development institution. Okay, development organization, NGOs. We try to find the connection between NGOs and IGOs. Okay, and also about GO and NGOs. We try to find the connection between GO and NGO. Some of the existing bodies which help in policy formulation are also being discussed, right? And how they help channelize the fund to NGOs are also being discussed yesterday. Okay, so as I have already told you that today I will be very brief. Okay, I'll be discussing some of the development concept. When we say development, we all know about development in the very first class. We have treated, like we have discussed this concept and tried to find out how this concept is being treated out. Okay. Uh, Now, ethical part of development is very important. We call it development ethics. Okay, so today we would like to understand what is development ethics. When we say development ethics, how would we define development ethics is very important. Okay, we say that development is a change, a process of change at a higher level, socio-economic, cultural change, or achieving a state of maturity is what we call development. And it is essentially connected to change. But when you say change, we here call it about good change, we call beneficial change. But those concepts, good and beneficial concepts, are not uh, associated with development. When we say development, communication for social change. So when you say development ethics, what is development ethics? Okay, ethics is to understand the good beneficial aspect of the change. If development is about changing of a people, changing of a society for a higher order state, then development ethics is all about that goodness, justice, liberty, equality, democracy, which are tied with the conception of state. So ethics are related to that normative value judgment. When we talk about development, it might have also substantive, and we see the descriptive element, like we have GDP, we have industrialization, right? We have some measures of development. We call it growth measures. We have called economic efficiency, right? These are some of the measures of the development. When we understand development, we also try to measure it. GDP is a measure of development, right? So these are descriptive component of development. But when we say normative component of development are basically the value, human values and ethical part of development. When we say the justice, when we say the liberty, democratic process are tied to the normative aspect of development. So this development ethics can be equated with the governance part. We call about governance. We have moved from government to governance. Today we are not going to discuss about the good governance part because it has already been discussed in even the first year, right, in the first semester. So, but we will also bring up that concept governance, maybe not in today's and this span of time, but we try to equate this ethical part with the governance because we have moved from that big government part, so which is leader which will design the socio-economic change and leader which will be the pioneer of socio-economic development. Here we will be looking after the role of people over the state, role of people over the decision making platform. So we talk about governance in terms of people's involvement and fulfillment of need of the people, and that's how we can understand development ethics. So when you talk about the ethics, we can also try to find development in the developmental debate. So why don't you? I'm just trying to bring that debate also, right? So it is all about understanding development ethics. So it is not a very difficult broad term, but it is a very normative term. And it is important to understand when you think about distributing the benefit, the kind of harm and also good which are allocated and which are also tied as a string to development. When we are talking about any schemes, right? When we are talking about any policies, so we need to find out the benefits and the harms which are also tied to it. Usually we don't take into consideration of that way, because ethics, when we say ethics, it is also a handmaid of those who are in power. We say we had a top down model of development, right? And top down model of development is a bureaucratic development. Right. So initially we have modernized paradigm. So now we are more into that people-centric development, but it should not simply be a kind of buzzword, but we should feel it that it is people-centric. And so when we talk about the top-down model of development, which is highly bureaucratic, which is also highly, procedural, so we simply try to locate ethics as a handmaid of those who are in power. Ethics is not something for those who are downtrodden, and hence the consequence of development is always uneven. So the distribution, when we talk about development, it is also about distribution of resources which are not equitable. And hence this development ethics, understanding development ethics is very important. And the core question of development in development debates is that why we don't choose the term like progress, liberation, transformation, right, instead of development. So we also see liberation is another term equated with development. But that is also a normative connotation of development. It is ethical. When we say there's normative connotation, it is ethical. Norm is involved, liberation. So what should be the consequence of that development? Policies, programs. So liberating the people. So we talk about NGOs. Now NGOs happen to be one agent which will try to bring government and make government much more accountable. And hence we also see NGOs have been a force to development, to allocate the development goods and benefits. Right. So it is also a civil society agent. We see civil society usually take that responsibility to create accountability of government towards the people. So that is also civil society and NGOs are that very force which also play a role into the delivery of development goods and benefits, and it is also an agent of development ethics. So when you say the development ethics, it considers three value judgment. What are those three value judgment? First judgment is basically the choice of having a community model. Let me tell you, choice of having a community model. I have interpreted it in terms of Indian context. Context is very important for development ethics. So when we talk about the value judgment, it's all about value. It's all about those normative parameters of development instead of descriptive parameters. Okay, quantitative parameters. We are not talking only about growth. We are also talking about the consequences of growth, right? We are not talking only about the GDP. We are talking about also happiness index. Okay, so hence we are focusing on the normative aspect instead of the quantitative or descriptive that index. Quantitative may not always be descriptive, but GDP, industrialization, these are descriptive index of development. In ethics, we are focusing on the normative aspect, and the normative is also equated with the value judgment, values, human values. If we see development is all about um, increasing the choice of human being, increasing the choices of human being, by way of which a human being can be more capable of. Human being can be more able to take decisions and can also fulfill his needs and interest, can take part into decision making. We can actually see that development is uncertain. Right. Now you see those three value judgment which are associated with the development. First one is the choice for a community model. Choice for a community model can be individualistic or it also can be communitarian. Okay, so we do have a choice for a community model. So what choices we are talking of? One is communitarian model, where we talk of solidarity and collective approach, collectively taking decision, collectively mobilizing, and also allocating the resources out of which we can get benefit. Each of us can get benefit. And also another model which is tied to it, that is individualist model. Individualistic model uh, uh, represent individual as a agent of social motor. Individual is an agent of social motor, in the sense it is a driver of that social motor. When individual himself, herself, is enriching and collecting even material asset also, an individual is happy, then you can see that he can make choice. Okay, so he can make choices. Then you see, he is happy, and that is the driver of development. So that's what normatively we can understand. These are all about philosophies involved in developmental ethics. You also need to know. So first one is the choice of a model for a community life, and in that model we can have individualistic model, we can also have collectivistic model. So let individual benefit from its own activities, society will also get benefited. Let individual take initiative and be self-motivated. Out of his action, society will also get motivated. Okay, so that is the parameter of development according to individualistic model. We also have a liberal model. This is also quite equated to liberal model, but that's how we interpret it in Indian context. We are not simply say it's a liberal democratic model. We are calling it an individual centric model, and we are also calling it collectivist centric model, where our goods are also be communitarian. So collectively we will be taking decisions about what will be good for us and for the community. Okay, so that is also another model of community life. One is individual model of community life, one is collective model of community life, and this encompasses the choices for a community, choices for a model for community life. Okay, then we have social justice. Social justice is another values. First one is choices for a model for community life. Second one is social justice. So we see that we have certain rights in the constitution, right? We have civic rights, we have political rights, and socio-economic rights. When you say civic and political rights, these are the rights an individual being can enjoy and claim, can have a claim over. But when you say those rights like economic and social rights, now we also say developmental rights. These are third generation of rights which we will be getting in fourth semester when we discuss about the rights. So there are also third generation of rights. We are talking about right to peace, right to development, right to self-determination. These are third generation of rights. We are talking of right to development is also there. So right to development is not devoid of or independent of civic and political rights and social economic rights, when we say. And hence when we talk about the social justice brings the question whether civic and political rights can take the primacy over social and economic rights, and that becomes an instrument of change. Okay, that makes us question what types of right will get primacy, like in the decision of an individual. Are you getting? So it is also related to the choice of the individual, what we actually get. We are talking here about the rights, but we are talking here about the primacy of the rights basically. Okay, that is the civic political rights, our right to vote, right to form a party, right to assemble in any place, right to have a speedy trial, even you say that right to take any judgment, give any judgment, right to freedom of expression, right to marriage, right to have children. Okay, these are civic right, part of civic right, and also political right to vote. Okay, the right to contest election, right to even see right to campaign for a party, right? These are also political rights. So civil and political rights are very individualistic, right? Okay, so whether it will take precedence over the socio-political rights, and we are here actually trying to balance between our individual rights and social rights to create a social justice. Okay, so developmental ethics lies in balancing the individual rights and social rights to bring instrumental change. When we say instrumental change, change is there. Instrumental change means we actually get to see a change in reality. Okay, so we want a change in reality, but when you say instrumental change, we see that there is a road which is being constructed. Okay, instrumental change. A bridge is being constructed. Instrumental change. Okay, we have seen that because that is a reality. Is a reality of change. But ethics is involved or not? Ethics will involve when you are talking about sustainable development. So, the third value component of development ethics is our concern for nature. So, when we decide development, whether we also decide the course of development and its impact on nature. Okay, that is very important, essential question. So, development benefits and goods should be allocated irrespective of caste, creed, religion, etc. Okay, but when we talk about the sustainable development, we need to think about the impact of development on the nature. Okay, so we all know about, we'll be discussing about sustainable development in one class. So these are the three value components basically related to development ethics. So you need to understand development ethics along with the development. Okay, it is not simply understanding development, bringing change in the society. We are talking about transformation. Okay, so what kind of transformation you have actually seen in the society? Whether transformation is meaningful transformation, we call it meaningful or not. When it's a meaningful transformation, that means that it is taking care of the needs of all sections of the population, right? So it's important. Then we actually see here a concept of public accountability. So development happens to be top down. Earlier also development, the communication was also top down. Use of media and communication channel by government to disseminate their agenda of development, to disseminate information about various schemes and making people aware. This is for the good of the people. In a democratic society, uh, government is also utilizing the media channel to making people aware is development communication. So there is also top-down bureaucratic model involved, how they are making use of the media to make people informed. But here, when you talk about development ethics, public accountability will play a role. Accountability. Now, when you say accountability, what does it mean? What does accountability mean? Right. Yeah. Tell me. Responsibility, taking responsibility of our actions, right? So accountability means taking responsibility of our, okay, it's a very simple definition. So how to make government responsible for the activities and action taken. So here we get to see the role of NGOs. So World Development Report has given WDR World Development Report in 2000 has given us. The World Development Report in 2000 has given us a framework. In that framework, it has actually highlighted four aspects which will ensure public accountability of the governments. Okay, so those four, you see parameters or you see four elements, if you see. One is budget. Budget is important, right? Second one is public hearing. Third one is citizen report card. And fourth one is public interest litigation. So, in order to create public accountability of the government services or making government accountable to the public, there are four aspects. And first aspect is budget. Okay. So, we have the budget. Budget is very important because it is through budget. What is, why you smiling? Okay. Budget is important because in budget we actually mobilize the resources, existing resources, human resources, material resources, physical resources. We mobilize the resources, we allocate the resources, and we monitor the use of the resources. And hence, budget is important. So here, when you say budget, so making budget friendly for scrutinized by public. So making budget to the public domain, getting it to the public domain, and making it available for the public scrutiny is what we are talking here about accountability. So we see that many a time we say that budget is available for public scrutiny, but actually in reality it is not done. No? So in Brazil, in South Africa, in many states, we get to find that budget is actually designed by the people. Huh. They once they tentatively, the authority tentatively prepare the budget, they will make it available for the public, and public will give their comments and their voices. Thereafter, we will decide how much allocation is required for different schemes. So, making budget available for the public will ensure the public accountability. But this is very tedious process because it's very time consuming also, making budget public friendly. Okay, public friendly, create a public friendly budget. And when you are talking about public friendly budget, then again you see that there are so many agencies are supposed to be involved. So here we need to find the role of media and civil society organizations, CSO, NGOs, and civil society organizations. Okay, so there we actually see the voices of the people regarding the allocation of the resources. So we see the voices, their demand, their claim are ascertained or not in the whole budgetary process. So that's how we can ensure public accountability. Okay. Second thing is after budget, what is important is uh, public hearing. Public hearing is carried out by various NGOs. Let me tell you, in making budget like in public friendly, we have a role of NGO. Okay, NGO's role will come. All the civil society organization can play a role. So when we talk about civil society organization, in last class we have discussed about numerous terminologies, maybe grassroots organizations, community organizations. We also have non-profit organizations, right? We have those that voluntary organizations. So there are numerous organizations which will help us to take budget to the people. Okay, so for public hearing also NGOs uh, can be a kind of assent to make government accountable. So for public hearing, many NGOs have already tried to experiment this kind of public hearing. So what they did in Rajasthan also, one NGOs, MKSS, they tried to create a public hearing of the um, scheme of the government, and they come to learn that those schemes, employment generation scheme, are being misused. So during this public hearing, those abuses of various schemes and implementation have come out. Okay, and then media is there to make the report. So this public hearing is also associated with the media. Okay, so to make government accountable. Okay, so here you get to find the role of NGOs to make government accountable, and in WDR report you get to find that framework where NGO is situated between the state and government, and how it will also take you to a long route and a short route to accountability. Then we have public interest litigation, PIL. It's very important. So it is all about bringing court closer to the people. So public interest litigation is also called the epistolary legislation. Why epistolary legislation? It is also called the collective legislation. It is called the collaborative and investigative legislation. Just because it relaxes the locus standi, relaxes the legal procedure for the people. So bringing court closer to the people. So when we see that administrative services, executive is not working properly, then we can also rely on the independent judiciary. Judiciary come and try to find out the situation, what is happening, and can also conduct a public hearing. On that basis, report can be prepared and protect and promote the interest of the people. So it is basically to protect and promote the interest of the public and making government and administration more accountable to the public. So public interest litigation was new to India. It originated in West in 1960, and being inspired by that US public interest litigation aspect in independent judiciary, we have also adopted it. And in India, we have P.N. Bhagavati and V.R. Krishna Iyer. Those were two chief judges responsible for making legal process easier for common people. And they are the one who made this legal development, public interest litigation, through which people can also have a voice over any kind of decision of the executive and administration. Okay, so when we talk about the PIL is collective in a sense that if the victim cannot have the resources, cannot have the voice to claim for justice, then a registered authority, let me tell you, NGO has to be registered. There are also many NGOs available without having registration. A registered authority or any other person can file a PIL on behalf of the victim. Okay, so PIL can also be very expensive. So we see that it is not that expensive. Sometimes PIL can also be expensive, and at any point of time, you should be ready to even hear the adverse side of the decision, verdict. So when you when you put up a litigation, file a litigation against any institution, any authority, any person, any services. Okay, so that is one thing. But here, finding a lawyer is very important, a very competent lawyer, and also to collect documents is very important. Okay, so many people, many poor people do not have resources to collect the documents. Then government in that case appoint a commissioner. Government in a sense, Supreme Court can also appoint a commissioner to collect the document in favor of the poor and in favor of those aggrieved section of the people whose voices are not yet heard. Okay, so when we talk about the public interest litigation, so we also see that this is collective, this is investigative because it actually investigates the existing institution, especially the prison. Then we talk about juvenile homes, the functioning and management of juvenile home, the prison, and also you see other corrective institutions, you see. And you see the administration of those corrective institutions and take corrective measures. And it also creates a forum for discussion among the expert as well as general public who represent the general public. Okay, so public interest litigation is also one method to make, you see, government accountable. Okay, so many NGOs, they file PIL against any kind of, you see, administrative mismanagement, misappropriation of fund. Okay, so in that cases, Supreme Court can come closer to the people. They can come closer. They can also appoint a separate commission to evaluate the situation, to investigate the situation, or at times they can also work along with the Human Rights, National Human Rights Commission and CBI, Central Bureau of Investigation, to investigate the situation if reported. Okay, but the thing is that in a way, court is coming closer to the people, and also that's how we see our developmental role related to social welfare is also achieved in a way. When independent judiciary is making a voice and going against the administration and executive and trying to make justice available for all and also bringing welfare for all. So that is important. Then citizen report card. That has already been administered in many cities, particularly in Bangalore. We get to find the citizen report card, which are administered by NGOs. So with the help of NGOs, some report card has been distributed across community members, and try to find out their experience about existing services. It is a CRC. So it is all about listing out the people's experiences about the existing services. So it's a kind of feedback mechanism, you might also say, but this is very structured because you will have those options available. So you can tick mark on those options. It is not about getting your opinion. So it's very difficult also to make people go subjective because they do have endless problems, right, regarding or endless grievances at times against the authority, against the institution. So, creating a structured questionnaire through which they will try to investigate the experience of the people uh, of the services which are being delivered to them. So, it is about listing out their experiences. This is a part of, you see, citizen report card. So in Bangalore, this kind of experiment has been carried out during 2003 only, and they actually found many funds are misappropriated, and also found that there is also an apathy of the people against it. So these four are the mechanism. So which was drawn by World Development Report, which will bring government closer to us. It is a part of good governance, making government much more responsive, making state much more responsive, making public authorities and public sector understanding much more responsive, transparent, and effective and efficient in service delivery. Okay, so this is important for you to understand. So I understood those four uh, aspects of public accountability. Then in the last class we have also discussed about NGOs. We basically discussed the concept of NGOs, right? And different types of NGOs that we have in our societies and different types of groups. We said that we have interest group. So we actually articulate the interest of the people. We have pressure groups. So when we talk about those agents of public accountability, we actually talk about the pressure groups also because they create a pressure, put a pressure on the government, okay, to deliver their services efficiently, effectively, and without having any corruption in it. So hence it is also important to understand uh, the voluntarism. Now we have been talking about karma yogi because it happened to be one key parameter of defining an individual who are working. Also, you see that this is how services are also defined and can become karma yogi and can define, especially for those who are employed in government services, right? And hence, it is important nowadays when we start behaving. More like altruistic way, which was not the case earlier. We behave in an altruistic way, in a selfless way. Because in bureaucratic process, we also have that procedural killings and all. And here, when we talk about the top-down model of the development, you see the ethics is also procedural. Hence, I am saying that ethics is the handmaid of those who are in power. Ethics is also procedural. But when you talk about actual governance, we call about good governance, we are talking about real, substantive, and open uh, platform where people can participate. Okay, so that is the development, real, substantive, and openness is equated with the development ethics. And hence, voluntariness is important. So that kind of voluntarism or voluntariness of the people. So we have different kind of voluntarism. So we have been discussing about these types of voluntarism, and it is important just relate in order to even understand. We got a concept called inner fruit. Okay, for us, those who are working in the public sector, and this for all. And it is also important for, you see, people who are engaged in public sector, so that you can even understand their role. So that voluntarism is important. The first and foremost voluntarism is, we say, this is called the sacrificial voluntarism. So we all get to find Mahatma Gandhi. You have the Franz Fanon. Franz Fanon, Mahatma Gandhi. You have also this that Raoul Prebys. They criticized the top-down model of development. Right? Mahatma Gandhi's model of development is different, and they do have an alternative model of development. We call it alternative. When you say alternative model of development, Mahatma Gandhi talked about Ramrajya and trusteeship model. We can discuss about the trusteeship model, but here, when we say the alternative model of development, they basically criticize the existing model of development. So Franz Fanon is talk about the Prebij. They are very much sacrificial to the, you see, to the society by their activities. So the thing is that they are the salt and light of the community at the same time. And sacrificial volunteerism, it's like they do not have any kind of, like, that interest uh, to themselves while fulfilling the services. So we do not have sacrificial volunteerism nowadays. So when you talk about CSOs and CBOs, community-based organization, that community service organization. Okay, so we do not have, and also NGOs, we do not have sacrificial volunteerism. So we talk about professional volunteerism nowadays. So when we say professional volunteerism, basically they are NGO specific, those internees and agents who have been working for long in one NGOs. So perhaps we get to see that there is a transfiguration. When they enter, they might not have been trained, but over the years, for 10 years, they are being engaged with NGOs. So that has made them trained. So that is called, you see, professional volunteerism. Okay? Professional volunteerism is transfigured. They started as an amateur, but they got the training. This is also called the transfigured volunteerism. So there are different types of volunteerism. We can actually see the sacrificial volunteerism, professional volunteerism. We also have pseudo volunteerism and also survival volunteerism. So many people, they usually get hold of a profession just because of those penny, some, just because of the bread. Okay, and hence we get to find that whenever there is any kind of setbacks come, they also withdraw from their field of activities. So hence they consider NGO, consider that institution as a platform which give them bread. So that is a kind of survival volunteerism we get to find nowadays. Because of the context also, it is also driven by the circumstances, driven by the context. And developmental ethics is not devoid of the context, and say. And then we also have this amateur volunteerism. They are basically these people with raw talent and also wishes to do something for the society. They want to bring change in the society, do something for the society, but they do not have that, training. They don't know how to approach the society. They do not employ any kind of method, but their approach is highly amateurish. So you can also see that amateur volunteers are there in the society. We have 20 to 25, 20 to 25% people constitute amateur volunteerism. Then we have also another form of volunteerism, that is called, ventilatory volunteerism. This is applicable for those Rotary Club, etc., uh, and also CSR activities of a few companies who usually ventilate their grievances by doing social work. We call it ventilatory volunteerism, in the sense that they have their heart and soul with the community. So during their off time, then they went to village. They set up a camp. They also give some services. They deliver some services. They provide some relief for the flood-burdened people. So they engage in any kind of philanthropic activities. So that is a kind of ventilatory volunteerism, and by way of understanding who are being involved. Basically, they are rich people they are ventilating their urban stresses, and that's how they have involved. And it is ventilatory, it is named ventilatory because they can quickly enter into this volunteerism or voluntary services and quickly withdrawals whenever they get pressure. So just because they can quickly withdraw, they can also quickly join. We call it ventilatory volunteerism. Okay, we also have pseudo volunteerism. It is different from this survival volunteerism. So pseudo volunteerism are actually those who can do anything by hook and crook to establish any NGO business. Okay, because they know that funds are available, government funds are available. Okay, so they, without having any training, without having any commitment, they set up an NGO, get it registered, and also try to work on a project. But it is all about misappropriation fund and appropriation of fund. And many times we actually see that when people are not employed, they turn to be pseudo volunteers. Okay, we see that this is also an adverse effect of unemployment and all. So when people won't see any other route, people are talented, they could not even get placement. There is no other way that they could also express their concern for the society, or they started having some idea about, okay, I want to earn money and all. So it's a one way to make their dream reality. And hence we could also find the pseudo voluntarism, and hence this kind. And then transfiguration is also important, transfigure voluntarism, where we actually see a transformation of one form of volunteerism to other. Suppose a professional volunteer can also turn to be a pseudo volunteer, join as a professional volunteer, so having 6-7 years of training in one institution or university, so he is quite adapting all the methods and approaches of volunteerism and social work, then join an NGO. Then he actually see the context is such, circumstances is that everybody is earning money by corruption, through corruption. And also he or she turned to pseudo volunteer. So you actually see from professional volunteer, he is turning to pseudo volunteer. That is called the transfiguration of volunteerism. And we can also see amateur volunteerism after having 10 years of service, 5 or 10 years of service, maybe after 2 years of service, turn to be a professional volunteerism. So that is a kind of transfiguration of volunteerism or transfigure volunteerism. So like that way, we have some framework also to understand volunteerism, because we see in the last class we have said that volunteerism is not something very distant from us. So we, in ancient time, we could get some traces of volunteerism, like that you see that planting trees, digging well, right? Then Adhinam system, we have discussed about Dharamsala system, these are also part of volunteerism in earlier time. And we also have different types of NGO. We talk about those nationalist reformer NGOs, social reformer, social revolutionary NGOs who have been take root to volunteerism. These are all out of their voluntary effort. So we try to classify those existing institutions. We find that those are reflection of sacrificial, and some of those are ventilatory as well as professional volunteerism. When we talk about the national reformer, we talk about the social revolutionary. Social revolutionary is usually sacrificial intent is there, right? In even you see this national reformer, we also get to find ventilatory as well as that sacrificial and professional national reformer. Okay, then on the basis of social origin, we have classified those institutions, right? That single clientele, multiple clientele, right? So that is not necessarily single clientele, multiple clientele, size and ideology, which becomes the rationale of one particular organization. That is not related to volunteerism. These are some criteria to distinguish the existing institutions and services. Okay, so I'm finishing it today. So you have understood about development ethics, okay, and you have also understood about the public accountability framework by World Development Report So design a public accountability framework which encompasses individual, NGO and state, and that can be realized through four aspects: budget, public scrutiny of the budget. We talked about PIL. Third one is public hearing. Fourth one is citizen report card. Okay, that's what we have understood, and also about forms of volunteerism, which I missed out in last class. So you understood about it. In the last class, we discussed about concept of NGOs, right? Concept of NGO, which is very important. Classification of NGO, how will you define NGOs are important. Yesterday we have discussed about classification of NGOs, concept of NGOs, definition of NGOs. We also discuss about the linkages between IGOs and NGOs and government and NGOs. Right. We also discuss some of the challenges that NGOs are facing and remedies. We discussed about it yesterday. Right. So that's what I'm giving a sum up of summing up whatever I have discussed so far. Okay.